That's where most of them stopped. However, we made a call that seemed to hit a brick wall. Phil Robertson has a lot of fans because he is the dad on the very popular reality TV show Dynasty. He is known for being tough, teaching with tough love, and speaking his mind. Fans were heartbroken when they heard about a life-changing illness. Phil and his family had to deal with that in unimaginable ways. Come with us as we reveal the truth about what happened to Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. As a child, Phil Robertson had a hard and poor life. He came into the world on April 24, 1946 in Vivian, Louisiana, U.S. Phil was the fifth of 7 kids. He grew up in a house that didn't have power, running water, or other modern comforts. The family's small, run-down house barely kept the weather out, and the winters were especially bad. His father worked as a farmer and mill worker, so they were always hungry because they didn't make much money. They had to hunt, fish, and grow their own food in order to stay alive. As a child, he had to worry about staying alive rather than having fun. Phil learned how to catch animals and use a slingshot to shoot mice during the day. Over time, these skills became a part of who he was. Phil's mother taught him a lot of important things. Didn't show much love, though. It was a home where rules were often very strict and survival was more important than feelings. Being poor was very hard on Phil's emotions and left him with deep scars. As kids, the Robertson kids didn't have much hope of getting away from their hard lives, and every choice they made was based on necessity. Clothes and shoes were worn until they were worn out, and going to school was more of a chore than a chance to make friends. Still, Phil showed early signs of being strong and clever, getting some peace in the wild and becoming deeply connected to nature. Even though his youth was hard, grew up to be fiercely independent and with a strong will. These hardships made him the man he would become, whose story of rising from poverty to fame would inspire a lot of people. Phil's early adult years were not great, just like his youth. They both had a lot of problems, confusion, and self-destruction. He started out as a great athlete and showed a lot of potential, but then his life went off track, and he started partying, getting into fights, and living dangerously. His love of hunting and the outdoors, which had helped him get through a hard childhood, turned into an obsession that he followed without limits, often putting his duties last. Phil's growing dislike for structured life became clear while he was on a sports scholarship at Louisiana Tech University. Even though he was a good quarterback, he didn't like how organized sports made him work hard. He skipped practices to go hunting and fishing. He liked the thrill of the outdoors more than the hard work needed to become a competitive athlete. His natural skills on the field were mostly wasted because he was thinking about other things. Phil was even given the chance to play professional football for the Washington Commanders, but he turned it down because he liked shooting more than football. When Phil turned down the NFL offer, Terry Bradshaw, a famous player, used to be his backup. I used to tell everyone that there was a man named Phil Robertson who could throw the ball as fast as Joe Namath. I remember that you always wore a t-shirt and Levi pants. After college, Phil's life didn't go anywhere. The man wasn't sure what to do next. Phil started doing bad things to pass the time because he was bored. Because of this, his mood was always changing. Because he was so angry, he often got into fights and caused a lot of trouble. Phil's marriage to his high school sweetheart Marcia, also known as Miss K, went through a lot of trouble when he was younger because of his mood swings. His careless actions and damaging way of life put their relationship to the test. They got married in the middle of the 1960s, so they were just barely adults when they started living together. Miss K had a lot of hopes and dreams for her family. She thought they would be strong, but their early years were nothing like her dream. Phil became very careless after he got married. He opened a bar and started living a wild party life. His nights were full of all sorts of bad things. Miss K sometimes felt more like a single mom than a partner. She had a hard time taking care of their growing family, but Phil didn't seem to mind. The financial burden was huge, and even though he had the ability to be successful, they often lived in poverty. The blows he threw made things worse. Phil broke his wife's trust more than once because he was too focused on himself. These hurt her greatly, and she was devastated, but she was determined to keep her family together. Her faith was what kept her safe, but as Phil's bad behavior got worse, her love for him was constantly put to the test. This was the worst time because Phil was so angry he hit a man and his wife one time when he was mad. Then Phil ran away, leaving his wife and kids behind so he wouldn't get caught by the police. Biographical film about the first few years of Phil and Miss K's marriage called The Blind came out on Netflix in 2023. Miss K had reached her breaking point when Phil left his family. There was no money for her and she had to raise their kids mostly by herself. She never gave up on him though, no matter what. Because she loved Phil and had a strong faith, she didn't turn away totally. She kept praying for him because she thought that one day he would wake up and become the man he used to be. Phil, on the other hand, was living alone in the wilderness, feeling lonely and trying to figure out what his life was all about. He had a profound awakening after living for a while without a goal. He had a deep discovery one day. He could no longer hurt himself and others by living a selfish life. It was then that Phil turned to his faith to save him. At some point, he changed. He realized that what he had done had hurt not only himself but also his family very badly. He knew it was time to make things right because the choices he had made hurt him a lot. Going back to Miss K took a while, but Phil did start to call out. He started by trying to rebuild trust with his children and get back in touch with Miss K. He slowly put together the pieces of his broken relationship with Miss K. Also, she was glad to see him again. Even though they were hesitant at first and knew that trust had to be renewed, they were able to get back together. The couple was able to get over their troubled past through time, open conversation, and Phil's personal growth. Phil's renewed dedication to family faith and a steady way of life made their bond stronger than ever. On their way back to each other, they learned to accept, understand, and believe that love can grow, could get through even the worst days. Phil's life really changed after he gave up all his bad habits. He started Duck Commander, a business that makes duck calls and shooting gear in 1973. His innovative Duck Commander duck call changed the business and became very famous with hunters. Then, in 2012, Duck Dynasty came out and quickly became one of the most popular shows on the network. The Robertson family became well known thanks to the 11-season show. The Robertson family became famous thanks to Duck Dynasty, and Phil's strong opinions on touchy topics caused a lot of attention and debate. In 2013, he said some critical things in an interview with GQ that caused a backlash across the country. A&E, the network that showed Duck Dynasty, temporarily took him off the show because of what he said. The event caused a heated argument. Some fans stood up for Phil and said that what he said was his right to stand up for his family morals and beliefs. They thought that suspending him was too much and an attempt to silence free speech and personal expression. People, on the other hand, said Phil's words were harmful and criticized them. Even though there was criticism, Phil's backing made the channel change their mind. People who liked the show didn't mind Phil's views because he never hid who he really was. They wanted him to stand up for people who believe the same things he does. Phil found out in 2020 that he had a daughter named Phyllis that he had never met. Following a DNA test that showed she was related to the Robertson family, Phyllis called out to Phil. She was born from an affair during Phil's troubled years. Phil, who had worked hard to change his life, was shocked and humbled by the news. "That's me, Phyllis. I'm having a good time on the porch of our new log home. We've made it a little more our own since moving to Louisiana, but it's still a hunting camp." When Phyllis suddenly showed up in Phil's life, he felt a range of feelings. After a long time, Phil finally got to see a long-lost child. It was a happy meeting. On the other hand, it hurt to think about the bad life he used to live. Phil knew this was a humbling experience that served as a powerful lesson that people can get better, even after making mistakes in the past. Phyllis's birth was both happy and sad for Miss K and the rest of the Robertson family. It was good to have her join the group, but it also made Phil remember the time in his life when things were very chaotic. That being said, they decided to welcome Phyllis into their family and hearts. She thought about what had happened and said that she understood that everyone makes mistakes. She was thankful that Phyllis was there and saw it as a lesson in forgiveness and kindness. Phil and his wife have had a hard time over the last few years because they have both been having big health problems. Phil has had his own health problems because he is getting old, and Miss K has had her own problems that have put their relationship to the test. Miss K has had a string of health problems in the past few years. Her fans love her for both being warm and strong. In June 2021, one of the worst things that happened was that her dog Bobo bit her and sent her to the hospital. The damage to her cheeks and lips was very bad, and she needed medical help. Even though Ms. K got better quickly, it showed how quickly life can change, even for someone as strong as she was. Not long ago, in March 2024, Miss K was hospitalized again, which made her family and friends worried. In a post on social media, Phil let everyone know that she was getting better and that they were looking forward to her coming home, even though her situation wasn't life-threatening. At this age, everything needs a lot more care, and even small health problems take a long time to get better. Phil, like Kay, has had some serious health problems in the past few years. These problems have had a huge effect on his life and family. Phil has a blood problem that is one of the most worrying things about his health. He has been open about having a disease that affects his red blood cells and makes him tired, weak, and other things. Even though the exact diagnosis hasn't been made public, Phil's son Willie has said that the disorder makes it hard for him to keep up his high-energy lifestyle. Phil, who likes to be busy, work on his family's business, and spend time outside, has found this health problem hard. Because of the disorder, he has had to change his schedule and health care, and he has been taking care of it with the help of his medical team. Even though the blood problem is sad, what really shocked everyone was when Phil's family told them he had Alzheimer's disease. By the end of 2024, Phil's family told him that he had been identified with the early stages of the disease, which has severely impaired his thinking and memory. His memory, thinking, and behavior will be affected by the neurological disease that is getting worse over time. It will make it harder and harder for him to do things. Not only did Phil's illness make things hard for him, but it also made things hard for his family. Phil has stayed true to his family and his faith, even though the disease has been hard on him emotionally. Even though things have been hard, he has worked hard to keep a good attitude and keep living his life as best he can. Not only did Phil Robertson's family and the millions of fans who had watched him on Duck Dynasty be shocked when they learned he had Alzheimer's, people loved Phil because he was honest and seemed bigger than life. They also praised his work ethic, sense of humor, and strong family values. Because of this, when fans heard that he was fighting Alzheimer's, they were shocked and sad. Phil had been a sign of power for a long time. A lot of fans never thought that someone so healthy and active would have such a hard time. The announcement was very different from the tough, sure-of-himself character that fans had grown to know on the show. Fans were especially upset when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease because they had seen how determined he was to deal with life's ups and downs. A lot of people got upset when they heard the news because they felt like they knew Phil and his family. A lot of his fans showed their love and support by praying for him and sending him good thoughts as he started this hard road. A lot of people also sent their support to Phil's family, especially Miss K. Fans knew that the sickness would be hard on both of them emotionally. A lot of people felt sad when they heard the news because it reminded them how valuable time is and how important it is to be there for loved ones when they are sick, no matter what the future holds. Phil Robertson has left behind a legacy that people will always remember. In addition to having a great job, he has also done a lot to help others. Among other things, he has done charity work to support causes that are important to him and to promote family values. He has also worked hard to help people stop using drugs, something he knows all too well from his own troubled past. Phil has always been a strong supporter of family ideals and unity, using the money he makes from his business and public appearances to help groups that offer education and counseling for families. He and his family have also helped with local projects in Louisiana, such as youth programs and charity events that try to help needy families and veterans. Phil may be having a hard time right now, but his friends still hope he wins like he always did.